Yeah, alright, this is the intro to communication. So, by Google definition, communication, kind of in partaking in exchanging or information or news. Is there? Actually, I'm gonna just keep continue with this. So, I would like to believe that the obviously kind of like the purpose of communication is to kind of get how you're feeling or kind of get the main objective kind of out there to and to the person. But I just want to, I want to ask you this question. In your words, why do you think it's important to communicate to someone, about just in general?
That's a great question. Um, I feel like part of what you said is right. Like, communication is being able to express your feelings and get that out there, and that's valuable. Like, or actually, that not just valuable. Like, that's, I think, one of the coolest parts of the human experience. Being able to experience the world and then recount a story of something that happened earlier this morning or years ago and have someone understand it. And that's the other part of communication. Like, I feel like being able to communicate, like, you can't communicate well if you can't listen well, right? And so part of communication means being able to have a really good conversation, and that involves, oh, let me listen to you talk, let me listen to the question, all right, let me respond, and then maybe clarify or then ask you another question, or just like communication is kind of the foundation of all human experiences. And I feel like I'm talking about it from this very grand perspective, like as if it's this big thing, but it's just what we're doing right now. And it's how you, like, part of it is getting things right. So one path of communication is making requests, and I mean, how are you going to get anywhere in life if you can't advocate for yourself up and communicate, yo, I really want to, boom, right? And to the people who are higher up, or to people who can help you do that. Other times communication would be kind of like a celebration, to express some joy in your life and have the other people who understand what you're communicating sort of rejoice with you. On the other hand, it can be venting, right? Which is, I mean, more and more common, and I'm experiencing that with my friends. It's um, like venting isn't quite complaining, right? I don't like complaining, but venting is a normal part of your life. Complaining feels like a constant sort of, just like sulky, pitying yourself and remarking on every bad thing. Venting is like when you are with people you really trust, close friends, and then you're expressing to them what's like heavy, like weighing on you, and that's really valuable. Like, we're called to uh, carry each other's burdens. So communication, again, can be just like small talk, which I don't love, but there's value in it. How are you gonna get to be able to have a deep conversation if you can't do the, how's it going? Like, how's your day? So it's that, and then it can be really, really deep. Like, some of the deepest experiences we can feel and go through are only possible because we're able to communicate, talk, and listen. So, yeah.
I do admire the kind of way how you kind of think of communication as it's, these it's many people think of communication as like this one big thing, and it's like kind of almost kind of hard to do, when in reality it's kind of much more simpler than that. As you kind of put it, like, it could be like kind of just saying like it's my birthday party, like, like kind of
Right.
communicating your feelings. And I think you answered that question very like well, and it was honestly a good response, no glaze. But this is again, I just want to, the reason why I actually wanted to talk about this topic, when I saw kind of the list that you put on what do we wanted to talk about, I saw communication. I was like, I want to talk about this one just because, again, as we're so young, communication gets harder and harder, and I mean, not kind of harder and harder. It kind of gets easier and easier actually. But like when we're transitioning into like a teenager, it's also almost hard to communicate, as like this kind of stereotype, as teenagers, we kind of push our parents away or kind of push other people away. We're not really communicating with them, and it kind of gets harder as you're a teen. And at least I do like the way that you kind of thought about it. Like, I like to think that um like you're kind of like these, like you're actually good at communicating, especially like how you kind of said like there's a difference between venting and complaining. Because complaining is more of like you're just saying like how you're like kind of like feeling, or like kind of like just like it's more like hateful in a way, as venting is more you're advocating your feelings and you're saying that to like another person, and it can't even like it could just be like it could be more than just like a friend that you're close with. It could be like a partner, someone that you like you seek interest in, and maybe like your friend, like your like parents, just anything like that. And then with that being said, if you're gonna obviously if you're okay with answering this question, I want to know, is there any struggles that you have with communicating with another person?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. Um, well, for me specifically, like I'm so grateful to my parents because they've sort of fostered, like they've let me know many many times, um, you can come to me about anything, right? And a lot of people say that, oh, I'm always around, tell me anything. But the thing is, like, let's say I did something and and it's like weighing on me, or I'm guilty about even just thoughts. Like I haven't even done anything, but I have these thoughts. I'm like, bro, they're just, it almost feels like you're trapped when you have thoughts and you can't share them with anyone. And so when I build up the courage to like, okay, they said, I can talk to them. Let me just like let them know what's going on. Like the way they respond is very open, very welcoming, and it's not like they'll always say, "Oh, it's okay that you did or thought that," right? They'll be like, I mean, you're coming to me, you're confessing because you know it's wrong, but like they don't hammer it. They're like, that's natural, it's basically because I've been able to communicate everything with them, I've had the best and or like the most happy and the most intense conversations with them, like in my home. So because I've gone through that whole range, I feel like all other communication is relatively it isn't so much of a challenge. Now there are still challenges, like even again building up the courage to confess something, um, but things that have like helped me to communicate would be just being around other people, being around good communicators, like I'd say yourself, and then being around, and then being around people who are evidently poor communicators, right? And just like, no hate, of course, just as a matter of observation, and you can make judgments without being judgmental, right? You can become aware, like, oh, they're not making eye contact, or they're speaking too quietly, and those are natural. Fear of public speaking is the most common fear, right, in the world, but it's like you paying attention to that and thinking, okay, I want to sort of be the best I can be in light of that. And then also, again, with my own interviews, I've gotten used to conversing with adults or with people I like respect because I'm reaching out to like my intellectual heroes. I'll read a book and I'm like, oh shoot, this is a good book. I'll look up the author and then try to interview them. And when I do, um, I I prepare, like, I'm always studying to prepare for the interview, and I think the preparation helps the communication. So a challenge with communicating might be like, what do we talk about? Whether you're in a really formal situation where there's a lot writing on it, or just a conversation with new people or old people, like what in the world do you talk about? And I mean, I think a lot, so I think about what to talk about often, and that, like I said earlier, it can be a problem because of overthinking, but it's also helpful when you're always thinking about what to touch on, so that when you have a conversation, you're prepared. So all that to say, I don't think there are many challenges with communication for me, mostly because of my parents. The one thing would be, honestly, like I don't. There are certain things I don't tell anyone at school. Um, I mean, like, yeah, like I don't think I've told anyone at school, because for a couple reasons, and yeah, a couple reasons. One is I genuinely don't. I haven't built up enough trust that people will keep a secret, right? So, if because I see my friends share with me something that was told to them in private. And I'm like, shoot, if you're telling me what your friend told you as a secret, I'm not going to tell you a secret because it's going to get around, right? And then even when there are people who I'm like, all right, I don't think they're gonna gossip. I don't think they're gonna tell anyone else. If I tell them about thi- about things related to school, even if they don't tell anyone else, it could affect kind of our interactions because it's a small school, and so every whatever when you get new information, it can affect like your relationships with different people, and so there's those are just like there are just a couple things that I don't tell anyone, and it's not necessarily a challenge. It's just like I will be really open about pretty much anything relating to me, but when it has to do with other people at the school, I don't like talk about. I don't talk about that sort of drama, with other people, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So, not really any challenges, just certain things I'm aware of because of my parents and because of how our small school works.
Okay, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Nahova Life. Helping your son be a good communicator. I think that that's obviously good. Being able to communicate at such a young age is actually I would argue is probably one of the best skills you can have growing up. Just because you're so quick to, convey your feelings and how you feel about other people, and then like how you said about like the school thing. You rather not talk about other people. I think that's just kind of getting away from the gossip. I wouldn't say that's like much about communicating, but again,
Yeah.
that is obviously I will say like that's actually a good thing to have though, like not wanting to talk about other people and like in like whether it's a good or bad manner. But obviously, I feel like in the context you're saying it's a bad manner. So I think that's just more of like a personal thing, and I admire that. Um, but I will say that I guess to answer my own question, the kind of struggles is, I guess to kind of go against what color you kind of use, not against, but like to kind of go and like flip the circle
Yeah.
your way. Was I never like I'm gonna be honest like, and I'm okay with saying this like I'm not that good of a communicator. Like I wouldn't say that I'm like the best. Like I wouldn't say you like even if I'm like, decent. Like I still think that in many ways I could still there's still different I could still like communicate better. It's just sometimes I can see like when people tell me like I'm too scared to tell someone this because this blank 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 blank, and I can see why because I get it. Like I come from what you're saying, and shoot, what was I gonna say?
Can I
No,
say
you
more
can
about
use
that?
it.
Um, yeah, that's good, and I appreciate those comments. A couple things that I'm thinking of that might actually be challenges will be one, uh, like I value being concise, right? So being clear and brief, but especially when I'm like put in a situation like this where I'm sort of given free reign to just talk a lot. I don't know how much I condense it, right? So maybe a challenge would be kind of rambling. Although, in an informal conversation that's expected, but like, I feel like I might be sacrificing some clarity when I just keep going. So that might be one challenge. And the other is thinking about, again, what will I do, right? I feel like I should make use of my communication skills, but I wonder how, should I be like I'm thinking being a teacher or like a professor or something, or a public speaker. Like literally, I'm, an assistant, not an assistant researcher. Like I'm associated with a university or a research group, and I research, I write, and then I speak publicly. And I'm like thinking, okay, maybe there are these paths to a career that are based on communication, but I don't know what it is. And so when I look ahead and think about what am I going to do with my life, um, I'm uncertain. It's not like I have no idea. It's that I have a bunch of ideas and I'm not sure which one is the best one. So that, it's always a challenge, again, especially for people our age, to think about the future. Yeah.
And then again, I'm gonna dial it back a little bit,
Yeah.
back to what you were kind of saying. Is you kind of expressed that you said that your parents are very welcome, like are very welcoming, saying like if there's anything like going on, you could tell us this and that. But I feel like I want to know if it also comes stems from action because I will say that um, you can obviously you can say these words, but will you actually back it up type of thing? Especially like if we're talking about people our age, you can always say like, hey, if you need anything, like I'm gonna be there for you. But like when the
Right.
time comes, are you gonna actually be there for that person and maybe like because obviously like if someone's going through something and they might not want to say nothing about it, are you gonna like is someone gonna step up and say like are you like okay and kind of like this and that.
Yeah, I mean, wait, so just to clarify the question, like, are you asking about specifically when I talk to my parents, if, like, kind of how the action proceeds from
Yeah.
there? Okay. Um, Honestly, I feel like, well, the action is definitely important, right? There's, I don't know how much you want to, like, well, like there's a story in the book of James where he basically says if you tell your brother who is cold, "Oh, be safe and be warm," but you don't invite him into your own shelter and you don't make a fire for him and you don't give him food, then you have empty words, when you offer to comfort someone but then you don't back it up, right? That that sort of faith without works is dead. Um, but when it comes to talking with my parents specifically, the action is important. But oftentimes when I'm having that kind of conversation, I'm not necessarily looking for advice. It's just the relief of letting someone else know, because like sometimes
So
when
venting. Okay.
yes, yeah, sometimes, but venting I feel like is oftentimes about other people, and that's what it is too. So I guess it is venting in a sense. I think of it more as either like a deep conversation or like it's literally a confession sometimes. But it's just like so freeing when you tell someone who's not going to judge you what's going on, and sometimes it's not with my parents, but sometimes with my friends. I've specifically told them, "Yo, I don't really talk about the negatives that much. I don't like think it's good to dwell on them, but let me just tell you what's going on." And I'll specifically tell them, "I'm not really looking for advice. I didn't need to let you guys know." And then in one case, like it spurred them to do the same thing, and we were just like typing paragraphs, no advice, but it was just like helpful even without any specific action, just to be like, all right, I put that into words, I communicated it, I got that out, and now it feels better even if it's not solved.
Really well said, well said. And then kind of I want to like obviously dive into more friendships and like kind of again relationship type of wise because I do feel like I'm not gonna like obviously like say names, but like sometimes I can even like put myself under the bus. Like times where something happens and you don't kind of communicate with the other person, so they keep letting it happen and kind of you just kind of keep that inside. Um, with that being said, do you have like any ways that you kind of build up courage or like kind of communicate clearly to like friends, like any or like even family in again in that manner?
I think it starts with the little things, when you make it a habit to communicate just regularly and realizing the importance of it, then that helps you. Like the motivation. Well, sometimes what motivates me is actually wanting to avoid regret. I think like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm gonna regret it. You know, whether I'll regret it right when I have the opportunity and don't do it, or whether I'll be thinking about this, for the rest of my life. Like if it's that serious. And so I think, okay, I don't want to live with regrets, and now's the time to avoid them. So let me just say it. Let me just, get it off. Let me. Um, do that. So it's about thinking about, okay, I'll regret it if I don't communicate well. It's about developing that habit of communication, and I mean ways I build up courage to communicate. I guess it's, yeah, seeing like the importance of it. Um, yeah, I mean, what about you? Like, what about how about two things? Like, if I could ask you a question or a couple questions. One, when there were times when you didn't communicate and you reflect back on them, why was it bad or why was it understandable? Like, did you have not just a good excuse, but like a good reason for that? So basically, what are the challenges when you don't communicate, and then how do you? Because you've said you don't think you're a good communicator, but in the grand scheme of things, you're good at. You can hold a conversation and stuff at least. So, and I mean more than that, you're hosting a conversation. So on the one hand, what are the challenges with not communicating for you, and then on the other, how do you develop communication skills?
Alright, just to kind of answer the first question, I feel like again, how I kind of like started to live my life more was, I tried to avoid regret or kind of envy type. So like whenever I want to do something, I think of okay, like I think you should always live your life how you want to live your life, and then, and I feel like you shouldn't live with fear. I feel like fear lives in us all, and I feel like that it's important to kind of be true to yourself and just live your life and don't let anything hold you back. So, um, I guess in the past when I didn't communicate, it just kind of like just built up on me, and then when I like said my feelings, like the damage was been did not been done already. Like just kind of it's kind of irreversible. And then not even like in just like relationship, like even like with friendships, like if I'm not okay with like my friend like making a joke or say something, I kind of just keep that in and I just don't really say anything, and it just kind of like I just have to kind of deal with it. And then when I do communicate, it's just like, is there even a point? Like obviously there is still a point, but like I should just
But
said
it's been going on
it's been going on so much to the point where it's like I can't really do anything about it now. And then what was your second question?
Second question was, well, I was just putting your last question to me, like, how do you develop communication skills?
Um, I think developing communication skills, just kind of like building up like again conversation with like a person, kind of building my bond with another person, just so
Oh,
it's so just so it's good enough to be able to say like, hey, like I'm not okay with this, and maybe can we do this instead, or you know I'm not okay with what's going on right now. I think that we should talk about like what's going on, like this and that, and yeah. And then if you have any more questions, I think a couple more. Just
Oh,
ask
yeah,
you.
I'll hear yours.
Um, I mean, okay, just like again, this is more of like a comment, but then you can add on to this. I feel like communication is just more than just like how you feel. I feel like it also takes kind of being mentally being aware and being there
Yeah.
to even like say anything. Like even just besides like a conversation, like if we're talking about like being serious and like having a serious conversation with someone, that you have to at least be like mentally ready, like or even have like mental confidence, which is like it's basically like regular confidence, but it's like more of like for like how you are like conditionally, and it's kind of like you just have to be present in the moment and be able to like kind of say everything. And also to add on with that, I feel like there's also a difference between like you just kind of like rambling, like making excuses of something, and being honest and clear. Because honestly, like the you saying how you're feeling, like how you truly feel, and how like being transparent, kind of gets covered on. Sometimes you want to put excuses or make up lies to go on top of your communication, like on your feelings, so you kind of it doesn't come out how it should come out. Because obviously sometimes communication can be hard, as you know it's also telling the truth, and many people are kind of scared of that. I'm gonna be honest, like even I am too. We're all human, we're all scared of like sometimes with that, and I feel like you should always just kind of be transparent with it, and it's okay like to not be okay with it, but if do you want to live with life with regret, and are you gonna really like let this kind of affect your relationships and friendships like that?
I mean, what you said makes me think self-expression is most powerful when it's grounded in mental clarity, So when you're going to be able to share what's going on, which is like communication. You're going to be able to communicate better when you're talking about like mental confidence. When you are sort of confident, or at least you know what's going on in your own mind. Because if you anytime you have a thought or you have a desire or something, or you have trauma or like anxiety and you suppress it, right? Then it's going to be significantly harder to communicate a bottled up emotion. So that I mean again, that's why I think like mindfulness, and especially mindfulness meditation, can be so helpful, because you're alone with your thoughts, and but you're not you take a non-judgmental stance, so you just kind of sit and you're thinking, all right, how do I feel right now? Like, let me just experience it, whether it's good or bad. And then when you're sort of in tune and you have mental confidence, like you're talking about, the communication is just more natural, because it's like um, like out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. You know what's going on inside. It's easier to just share that with someone. So yeah.
Um, Again, just to touch up on what I kind of last said was, I feel like if your mind is so cluttered and you need to get something out, I feel like you should, unclutter your mind. Just think about, um, like what's going on, and then say, because again, that clutter in your mind could really like cloud up your judgment and
Right.
how you're gonna say what you need to be said in your, in your communication. And then from that, I think that um, I've kind of no more questions. So if you have any more comments and anything like that, we can just kind of wrap this up.
Well, yeah, but then how do you declutter your mind? You know, like.
I guess okay. So this is gonna touch up on what we're gonna say later about overthinking. So again, like how kind of what you said, like how you kind of sit down and just kind of be alone with your thoughts. I do the same thing as well. Sometimes that's why I believe that I'm so heavy on hobbies and like doing something that you
Right.
love,
Yeah.
just because it's just even like if it's like in like there's multiple people around you, you're still with you in your mind. Like let's say you're playing a sport. Like for me, I play basketball. Like I can be shooting hoops outside, listening to music, and I'm with my mind and I think about everything going on and I'm like, okay, so this is the problem. What are the solutions to the problem and how can I fix this? And then you can even do that with like anything. Like you say you're doing art, like you're drawing, you're with yourself and you're with your um your whatever you're drawing or painting, you're with yourself in your mind. You can think about like, what are the problems, these are the solutions. And that's why also to touch up on what you said earlier about self-expression. So it's so like important, because that's how you kind of put yourself out there in the world.
Hey man, those are good insights. You know about like I think you're saying a problem with communication would be decluttering. So to kind of work on the foundation of your communication, no. A problem with communication would be the clutter in your mind. So to become a better communicator, you declutter, and the way to do that is by sort of centering yourself on things you would really care to think about, things you really enjoy, like your hobbies, sports, or art or whatever. And yeah, that's interesting that that a hobby that doesn't, because you could be playing basketball and not communicating anything, right? But that could indirectly help you to become better in a conversation just because you're more in tune with yourself. So that's an insight right there. That's cool.
All right, and then I got nothing. So unless you got something, we can just kind of wrap this up.
We
Okay.
can wrap it up.